I'm keeping this intro short so we can get to the main video quickly. Corsus is potentially the third planet you'll visit in your campaign. Just like with the ROM video, I recommend running some adventures there to get some extra equipment. At this stage, you're starting to have quite a few options for armor, weapons, and trinkets. By this point, you've probably found your favorite setup, and because of that, I'll only recommend a piece of gear if I think it's really helpful to the fight. Also, bring plenty of green leaves with you. Blah blah 30% damage reduction, you know the drill. First up is Canker. He's pretty much a joke boss. His arena is a swamp, and the water rises as the fight goes on. There are a few spots where the water won't reach, such as the entrance, and there's a vault location in the middle, not that you'll need it. He has 4 moves, but you'll only ever really see 2 of them if you keep your distance, running around the arena and clapping. When he runs around the arena, he'll drop these mines on the ground. They deal corrosive damage if you touch them. This also applies to the adds. If he has Skullcracker, they'll stagger you, which can definitely get you in a bad spot if the adds are close by. His clap attack will cause a wave to form in the water and sweep across the arena. You can either dodge through it or stand on any dry part of the arena. The clap itself also deals damage, so watch out if you're point blank. The adds here are infected swamp elves, and the occasional swamp hound. The swamp elves will spawn in pairs, at least in solo, and the swamp hound usually spawns later in the fight alongside them. The fight goes like this: deal damage to the boss, deal with the adds, repeat. The safest way to win the fight is to literally just stand in the doorway and shoot. Obviously, if you're running the scrapper set or close range weapons, you'll want to stay closer. If you do stand here, he may walk over after running to the left side. Keep an eye on him here. He can get very close and then slam or uppercut you. That's mostly all there is to the fight. The only other thing worth noting is that his backside takes 25% less damage. Keep that in mind as he runs around the arena. Up next we have the Corsus caster, Thrall. His arena consists of a center pillar and 4 spiral staircases with platforms on top. Thrall has 3 attacks: a corrosive projectile, a corrosive cloud, and a corrosive bombardment. He also teleports around. The adds of this fight are banshees. These are those nasty elite bugs you've seen in the dungeons. He'll summon 2 of them if you're playing solo. They'll pursue you constantly. You can either kill them or kite them around using the platforms. They can occasionally leap to attack, which can one-shot you if you're not running any defensive gear. For the first half of his health, he'll only attack with his projectile and cloud. The projectile itself is easy enough to evade so long as you can see him. The cloud is also very easy to evade. Just run to another area. When he gets to half health, he'll start doing the corrosive bombardment. Visually, you'll see him lift up his hand when he begins to channel the attack. When you see this, run in a straight line as much as possible. After 5 or so blasts, he'll be finished. Although it's possible he'll chain the move back to back, so watch out. If you're able to, run behind him and unload your weapon into the back of his skull. You might also be able to hit his weak spot from the front if you aim at the sides of his head. He'll drop pretty quickly once you've done this a few times. Now's a good time to mention, the beam rifle is a really good tool for the majority of Corsus. 3 of these 7 bosses are weak to radiation. Neither of the other 4 are resistant to it. Fire damage is good on 4 of the bosses as well, 2 of which aren't weak to radiation damage. I used it for 4 of the bosses, but I could have used it for all 7. If you just want a really easy way of beating Corsus, roll some ROM adventures and grab it. Coming up, we have Dream Eater. This boss version of the Flickering Horror Elite resides in this pit-filled cavern. There are 3 holes you can fall into at the center of the arena. There are also a few pillars scattered about. So the boss himself, well, he's got 5 ways of dealing damage directly. A 2-hit combo, a charge attack, a delayed charge attack, a clone summon, and finally an arena-wide slam attack. The 2-hit combo comes out when you're point blank in his face. The charge move has him shift into a nearly invisible state. Here his weak spot is still visible, but the weak spot damage bonus is no longer applied. The delayed charge attack has him shift away while summoning the adds of the fight, which we will cover later. His Husk Clone Summon move has him uppercut the air to call forth a JoJo stand in front of you. This Husk attacks a number of times depending on the boss's current health. Above 66%, they'll attack twice. Below 66% but above 33%, they'll attack 3 times. Below 33%, they will attack 4 times. His slam move also summons the adds in a DPS check. During this, Dream Eater ascends into the air and teleports to a random location in the arena. A number of fake Dream Eaters will crowd the cave ceiling, camouflaging the boss. In this move, you have roughly 30 seconds to locate the real boss and deal enough damage to stagger him. Attacking a ceiling clone will spawn a homing projectile that chases the player, and will also briefly reveal the location of the boss. This is visualized by a white ping at the boss's location, which is visible through walls. Should you fail to stop him in time, he will slam the ground, dealing an insane amount of damage throughout the whole arena. It's possible to survive this, but it requires a good bit of defensive buffs, so you're better off just hunting down the boss. Now let's go over what purpose the adds serve in this fight. First of all, they don't have any health. They are instead brought down by a single hit from any weapon. Upon death, they spawn a homing ball of energy. These move pretty quickly, so be careful if you take down multiple in quick succession. You can be roll caught easily due to the small delay there is between the projectile spawning and it seeking the player. Speaking of rolling, you can actually roll through them to avoid dealing with the projectile. During the lingering melee clones attack, illusions will begin to come out of the ground while the boss hides. They then perform the same charge attack as the boss if they aren't dealt with for a period of time. So what are some tips for this purple fiend? Well, the DPS check can be made much easier by using this one simple trick. When you see Dream Eater begin to ascend, ping him. This ping marker will follow him to his real location. This gives you more than enough time to dish out some damage. For some advice to help with the adds, if you can, try and have a pillar nearby. This allows you to duck around a corner after spraying at some of them, thus avoiding the homing projectile. For the Husk summon, if you're quick enough and maybe light enough, you may be able to dodge through them. They have a really tough time trying to turn around mid-attack, which can make running away from them much easier. Also, try not to be too close to the walls of the arena. It's very possible to get stuck rolling into a wall as they attack. And that's mostly it. With enough practice, you'll get into the rhythm of evading his husks, dodging the clones, and passing the DPS check. Up next we have Barbed Terror. This pointy fella is a very unique boss. He is a stationary foe, unlike most other bosses. In fact, the half of the arena he is in is basically part of him. Speaking of arena, it's basically a rectangle, sort of a bent rectangle. The north, east, and west edges of the arena are a hazard if you stand too close. They will shoot out corrosive spikes in a few different patterns. Speaking of which, the main man himself. He has 3 melee moves and a spike launching ability. The first melee attack is an overhead cleave. This has a charging sound that can help with timing your evade. The second is a right to left sweep, and the last one is a carving slash. Each one of these moves can hit you at different locations. Standing in certain spots, however, will prevent the cleave and carving slash from occurring. The corrosive spike attack is the one that has a lot of variation. They are shot out from the walls and edges of the arena. They are heavily telegraphed, and visually poke out and glow before being launched. They also produce a distinguishable sound when appearing. There are 5 angles you'll need to watch out for when this attack comes out. The first one appears from under the boss. These shoot either one by one rapidly in a small line, or cover the whole arena all at once, depending on where you are standing. When standing up close, he will only do the one by one in a small line variation. 2 more are on level with you, on the left and right wall. These shoot out one by one, aiming in a V pattern towards the entrance. And the last 2 are on the walls but higher up, aiming in a V pattern towards the center of the arena. Knowing all of this, you can probably see the sweet spot where you'll have the least to worry about. As for a last note, once you've dealt around 30% damage to his health, he'll get knocked out. This is the perfect opportunity to dish out some free damage. You could also heal or restock on ammo and consumables. The choice is yours. So that sweet spot I mentioned, it's right here. By standing in this spot, he'll be safe from both the wall spike attacks, and he'll never perform the vertical cleave. This leaves you with dodging the right to left sweep, the carving slash, and the frontal spike attack. As long as you don't back up too much, this strategy is very safe. Of course, you'll need to practice at dodging the swipe. A neutral dodge usually does the job well. The spike attack will always come out in the order they appear. Knowing this, you can dodge left or right to easily avoid it. Do be careful neutral dodging, as you can occasionally take a stray spike from one of the wall attacks. Definitely pop a green leaf before hitting in the air. One spike alone not only deals high damage, but high buildup as well. I don't have to tell you how much a slash from him will hurt if your armor is a pile of goo on the floor. And that's the fight. Once you get the rhythm down, it's actually a really fun fight. Alternatively, if you wish to stand in the middle of the arena, Veil of the Black Tear can work quite well. Running the Cultist set doubles the duration of the bubble. Just be careful once it goes down. Coming up, we have the Unclean One. This big oaf is the first world boss you'll encounter in the campaign on Corsus. His arena is his home, presumably. It has breakable walls and a whole lot of pots. These pots hold infected swamp elves. Try as you might to not break them, the Unclean One will do so eventually. Speaking of which, this rotund individual has some hard-hitting moves. He has a 3-hit combo, a leaping slam, a belly bump, which can be preceded by a running charge, a weapon throw, and a spinning attack. Each of these moves deals really high damage. They are also pretty slow and telegraphed. On top of that, they each give the opportunity to hit his weak spot, his buttocks. So, how do we beat this guy? Well, it's all about evading his attacks and retaliating. Wow, really helpful advice. Next you're gonna tell me to hit the spacebar to dodge. What I mean is that the fight is a matter of knowing where to stand to encourage him to do certain attacks. By standing at a medium to far distance, we can make him throw his hammer. Like other charged moves on bosses, there is a sound that plays as he readies it. This attack is great once you dodge it, as it allows you to follow up behind him and clap his cheeks. Although he can turn around and belly bump you as he waddles. The charge into a bump move is like dodging a bull. Going left or right lets you whip around to smack his crack. The leaping slam can be dodged before he lands to butter his buns. The 3-hit combo can be baited out to close up and batter his behind. As for his spin move, just run away. He'll definitely smash a few pots on his way, and don't think the walls will save you. Once he finishes spinning, he'll take a rest, giving you ample time to riposte his rear end. This same rest animation can also occur outside of the spinning attack. And that's pretty much it. The alternate kill involves sneaking into his basement and hiding inside of a pot. This brings him downstairs for a one-on-one battle. His moves are mostly the same here, however he does have a new one and some tweaks to the others. His new move is a ground slam. This goes off multiple times and covers the entire arena. Each one is preceded by a charging sound. The delay between the end of the sound and the actual swing is very short. While you can definitely keep attacking him during this move, prioritize your own survival first. Literally stop moving and just neutral dodge when you see him swing. The Ring of Evasion and Akari passive can help increase the invincibility window of your dodges. Flicker Cloak can also be a big help in absorbing a hit or two should you mess up a dodge. In my opinion, this is the worst attack of the fight. On Apocalypse, it can instantly kill you very easily. Oh, and did I mention he can toss his weapon behind him at the end of this attack?
What was that?
Yeah, I screamed when this first happened to me. Once you've gotten past it, you can resume your efforts. The spinning attack now ends with him throwing his weapon. In my experience, he has a decent chance of just missing though, so just do the runaround and prepare to dodge after a few seconds. Speaking of throwing his weapon, there are several hammer axes in the arena. This means he probably won't have to go far to restock once he's thrown one at you. This AI can be abused though. If you have summons, you can actually have them body block him on his way to grab one. It can be finicky, and it's much more doable in co-op, but it is possible. That covers the alternate kill. I definitely wouldn't recommend you trying to get this one before the regular variant though. But you do you. Next up is Ixillis. Ixillis? The Guardian of Corsus. This boss, or should I say bosses, can be a serious challenge to new players. Their arena is a bridge with some railings and 2 middle walls. The bosses rotate off each other in attacks. One focuses on melee strikes and corrosive bombs, and the other progressively blasts the bridge in 5 segments. Also, at least once per their phase, the melee attacker will summon a swarm of wisps to home in on the player. As you probably already know, you can shoot out the cocoon to immediately start the second phase. This deals a good chunk of damage to it, at the cost of speeding things up. Alternatively, once the first boss reaches 75% health, the other will spawn. Once the blaster boss has reached the 5th location, the two will initiate a DPS check. This opens up their weak spots, allowing them to be staggered once they've taken enough damage. If left unbroken, the two will scream, dealing a devastating amount of damage. With both of them, it is essentially instant death. With one, it may be possible to survive on lower difficulties or with a specific setup. Should you pass the check, the bosses will swap roles. This repeats until one is defeated. When only one remains, it becomes enraged, and have access to both the beam attack and melee moves. Let's break things down. I highly recommend breaking the cocoon at the start of the fight, as it's just free damage, although you could bring the first boss to above 75% and then pop the second boss. Either way, I recommend immediately heading to the right side of the bridge. The melee swipes all have their own sound cue to help you dodge. There is both a horizontal swipe and a vertical swipe. As always, I recommend neutral dodging. Just don't be too close to the sides of the bridge. The corrosive bombs always come in pairs. While the center walls are still up, you can actually use the pillars on them to block their trajectory. Deal as much damage to the first boss as you can until the wisp attack. Once they spawn, you'll have a few options to deal with them. Veil of the Black Tier can completely nullify them, which allows you to keep up damage on the boss. Any high fire rate weapon, preferably a secondary, can pick them off one by one. Once the wisps are dealt with, and the blaster boss is at the 5th segment, it's time for the DPS check. The beam rifle with hotshot can make this check an absolute joke, although you can still pass it with many other weapons. The Hunter's set weak spot bonus damage helps tremendously here, definitely run it if you can. Make sure both your weapons are reloaded going into this check, as you can swap to avoid the downtime of reloading. Alternatively, and this requires you having killed the Dream Eater already, Rift Walker can help you avoid the attack completely. Time it right as they scream. Just don't forget to have it charged for the next check, and you'll honestly have zero problems. And that's where you rinse and repeat. The alternate kill is just killing both of them back to back without one of them getting enraged. To do this, just deal equal damage to the bosses, and when they're both close, just clap one and then whip around to get the other. Now for the true boss of Corsus, the Iskal Queen. This is the toughest boss fight in my opinion, in all of Remnant. She is by no means a boss that new players should try to fight, and because of that, I've thrown out the restriction for gear on this fight. Now this boss is completely doable with just starting equipment, but I suck really bad. For reference, I immediately beat her after using the hour-long consumables. With all of the setups I ran, I would always get to her second phase and then immediately die to her dash attack. The ones that really made the difference were the health and armor ones. If you are seriously attempting to fight her on the higher difficulties, definitely hit up Mudtooth and the Queen in the campaign. Now onto the fight. The Queen resides in a large box arena. The front edge has small holes where the beetle ads will spawn from in the first phase. The Queen herself has 3 phases: the Throne phase, the DPS check phase, and the melee phase. The Throne phase has her cycling from a handful of attacks. Here her body is considered armored, and her head takes regular damage. You'll want to keep aiming here, as to not suffer the damage reduction. Her first attack is always the corrosive beetles. They deal very little damage on their own, even on Apocalypse. However, they can swarm you pretty easily if not dealt with, as well as build up corrosion. There are also a few beetles that will glow among the others. These ones are much faster and should be shot ASAP. It's actually possible to have them chain kill each other from their death blast, which can help save on ammo. Hive Cannon's Hive Shot is an amazing defense against this attack. One cloud even lasts for both waves. Once the bugs are gone, she'll gain access to 4 new moves. She'll be able to strike her staff at the ground and create a damaging energy wave down the center of the arena. She'll also be able to send a similar wave down the left and right simultaneously. This requires her wings to be charged, which is signified by them glowing blue. When glowing, stay in the center of the arena until she performs the move. If she does the center slam, don't worry, she can't deal both attacks at the same time. So just run to the side and then run back as soon as possible. Another move she'll occasionally do is launch back-to-back volleys of corrosive sludge. These leave behind damaging puddles for a few seconds on impact. Her final move is a corrosive bomb that she straps to your arm. She can detonate this on her next attack or after 1 to 2 more. As soon as you hear this chirping sound, immediately dodge. Eventually, she'll summon another 2 swarms of beetles. Then the cycle repeats. Around 66% of her health, she'll enter the second phase, the DPS check. In this phase, you'll need to deal enough damage to stagger her. Here, her head becomes a weak spot. making passing this check not actually that bad. Should you fail here, you'll be cutscene killed, just like the Haro's grab attack. If you manage to stagger her, she'll enter phase 3. Before moving on, this second phase is actually where you can get the alternate kill. You'll notice puddles of water scattered about the arena. These have stalactites above them which can be shot down. If you manage to stagger her beneath one, you can shoot it down to impale her, killing her instantly. This is obviously the cheesy way of beating her. On to phase 3. Here the queen becomes relentless. She'll pursue you with her scythe attacks viciously. She can close the distance with her dash. She'll charge up for a second before bolting forward and slicing. Timing is everything. I usually wait a second when I see her crouch and then dodge. She also has a shorter dash with a diagonal slice. Evading this is as simple as waiting for her to get close and then dodging left or right. Her 3-hit combo may seem like it'll always hit you, but if you can manage to dodge the first and sometimes second hit, she'll be unable to follow up and be forced to take a second to turn around. Wrapping up her attacks, she has a large AoE slam. This is super telegraphed though, and can very easily be dodged. She can also split up the ground and make a mini floor beam like from phase 1. And finally, she has her double energy projectile attacks. A few dodges, either left or right, will do. And there you have it, the Iskal Queen defeated. I seriously recommend running Guardian's Ring and Mantle of Thorns to help reduce her damage in the 3rd phase. It'll make things so much easier. That's all of the bosses on Corsus. I tried to keep this video shorter than the other 2 planets. Hopefully it made it more digestible and less of a slog to sit through. The next planet is Yeesha, and I am definitely looking forward to covering Nightmare in that one. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.